everyone, it's the Alco Diesel Guy with another project. Today on the workbench I have a Metra f40 from Kato and scale locomotive again. And what I plan to do is put this decoder in it. And what I have for this locomotive is not just any decoder, but a specific one, the K5D7. If you're wondering why this is so special, it's really quite simple, and it's also quite unique at the same time. This decoder contains special LEDs to allow the reversing red headlights on this locomotive/marker lights to function when the engine's in reverse. You don't get that from a standard F40, it would just have headlights on or off. As nicely detailed as the ditch lights and the other little features, including the strobe light that stays on all the time, even though that's not realistic, is. If you have a Metra f40, this is the decoder you want to put in it because you want to take advantage of those red marker lights. And I believe this is about the only engine, as far as I know, that actually has those in the F40 line. I could be wrong. Feel free to post a comment if I am. Anywho, without further ado, let's get into it. First step is to get this engine out of its box. Typical Kato packaging, very well done. Again, I've never used this engine before. I guess I should probably test it just to make sure. I think I did test this already because it's in its box. And there it is. This is specifically number Village of... taking a look at this beautiful engine, Village of Itasca, number 183. Really good looking locomotive, I gotta say. So anywho, let's go ahead and get this thing going here. Gonna carefully split the frame apart, pull the shell apart from the chassis and let it drop out. Just takes a little effort here and then gently wiggle it. Ooh. Don't want to pull too hard because you can pull the details off on these things very easily. Still have not gotten used to that after being back in the hobby, N-scale part of this hobby for a few years now. I still keep goofing on that. Ah, there we go. I finally got it free. And it's just patience and messing with it and gently prying it up. There we go. It just popped off. There we go. And as we see underneath the hood, nothing much to look at right now. It's just a standard chassis. Zoom me in a little bit more because I'm going to need to see more of this. There we go. Move this out of the way, put this in place of that. Just a standard chassis, nothing fancy about here. This is the standard light board that comes with these locomotives. What I'm going to do today is take this one out and put that decoder in. So to start with, we'll get right into it. We're going to take this little plug out, this little clip. Let me actually get my sponger, which I had here a second ago. Here we go. I can't emphasize how much you want to use a sponger to work on one of these engines. It really comes in handy, especially when you deal with electronic components, etc., so you don't short them out and so you don't damage things. Plastic will wear out, I know, on this, but the idea is you'd want the plastic on the sponger to wear out, not the plastic on your locomotive, so to speak. So let's get this up here carefully. There we go. TCS, interestingly enough, on their installations say you don't need to hang on to this clip, and they do not show you replacing it, although I think they mention it in the instructions. Strange, but I'm going to keep it on my parts bin on the side there. I'm not going to get rid of that. Next, I'm going to pull the board out. The next thing to get this board out, I got to do is unfold these two clips. These are the motor pickup clips from the board. They make contact to the bus. This is very similar in terms of its design, in terms of the F40s and PAs. Pardon me, losing my head. As opposed to the P42s and the Alco PAs. This actually can come off first, actually. There we go. This is my stock board. I'm not going to do anything with this. See, it has the LEDs on it. We're just going to put this to the side. I don't need that anymore. As again, we're replacing that part. Let's now carefully pop this area up here. Carefully free the tabs. As such. I'm going to pull both these clips off now. I'm going to put them in my little parts bin back here. Pardon me, folks. And here we have the chassis itself. Next, I'm going to make sure these contacts are folded back enough, and I'm going to remove the two power pickup lines/contacts, whatever you'd like to call them, carefully without bending them. Note on these, they install with the nubs going up. So note to self and note to anyone else watching it, you want this to be bent upward. In other words, how this is, don't bend it, I mean, but this is how it should look when you pull them out, and this is how it's going to look when it goes back in. Again, this is the locomotive's rear end over here with that little metal hump in the front here is the front. This is critical as we have to keep the orientation straight to do the Kapton tape application, which is the next thing we're going to do. I'll show you how to do that. There you go, I carefully got that out. Okay, so now we have the two Achilles heels of this installation out. These are the two wire pickups that go right across the motor contacts right over here. The issue being, of course, that these contacts make direct contact with the motor itself. So if this makes so one of these should make contact with this line, now that the locomotive is converted to DCC, it can potentially take the DCC decoder out, and actually will take the DCC decoder out. So you don't want that to happen. So the solution to this is really quite simple. We're going to put Kapton tape around it. A tape should be placed just ahead of this nub right over here. This is what actually secures the decoder. You want to make sure it's facing up when you do this. So I've got my Kapton tape. I'm just going to wrap it around. Doesn't matter whether you start on the bottom or the top, just as long as it goes around 180 degrees. You want to make sure it's as far away from the nub as possible. You want to make sure you have a little gap from the nub, right about there, I want to say. Be careful not to bend these. Again, these contact lines are very, very sensitive and are very much subject to bending. You don't want them to bend because it will cause agony for you. So, that's one of them done. Now, all I'm going to do now is grab my knife right here. Turn it on the side that is not bent upward so I don't risk deforming this. Like that right there. So these are now facing up so I don't bend them. I'm going to now go across with my knife and just cut that. And that's one done. Okay, so next, got one more piece of this that I made already. Let's go grab it. Across the top right here. So I did last time. Fold the two ends over each other. Then cut the extra side off. One note on this is when you make a cut like this, you want to make, it's not necessarily the greatest way of doing things, because you don't want this side to be exposed to where the motor contacts are, so you always want to make sure this alters on both sides. Just make sure I have this set up correctly. Okay, I do. I'm just going to now go and just cut the excess off, because again, you don't want the side that is exposed to be the side that where the contact is wrapping over, because that kind of defeats the purpose of doing this. There we go. Just like that, I've cut through it. It should now just come right off. There it goes. Almost looked like it came too well off, but no, it's on there. There it is. Kapton tape is wrapped around, so we're in good shape to go. You also want to keep this as light as possible. One layer is all you need. If you put too much on, the decoder will not sit correctly on top, and you'll have major contact and running issues. Okay, so now we have this. Here's the chassis again. Let's now go and get these decoder parts back in place. Main power ports, I should say, back in place. So these go toward the front. And we want to make sure the insulation goes there. I may have to cut a little bit more on the side here, a little bit more, it looks like. Again, an easy way of keeping your orientation straight is to make sure these little nubs are pointing up. Let's say the little button things, they should be pushing up toward the decoder, not down. Alrighty, after a little messing around, and you see it looks a little bit hideous, but I did get it in place. I managed to get these contact lines in place. The biggest issue is getting them fit in this little slot here, this little carrier that locates these in place. It has to be clamped in there, and it's really difficult to make it fit. Unless I did pull it off, I did get it in. I'm going to go ahead now and complete the assembly. I now have these two endpoints. Let me make sure I have the arrow orientation. What I like is I have pictures from TCS on my computer. Pardon me while I bend over here, just to see exactly what position they should be going. Oh, that's nice. They don't even have that. Pardon that interruption, folks. This is why I love making these videos, because now I know the orientations. It turns out these arrows on these top clips have to be pointing away from the engine itself. There we go. Good. Just press this into place. There it is. Oh, yep. Did I get it in? No, not quite. Not quite. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. Clipped in. Good. All right, that's in. Okay. Alrighty then, let's now pull this a little bit further out so it's properly aligned. I'm going to now go grab the other clip. These clips really are handy little inventions, even though I know they're very basic. They keep these things nice and torqued against the contacts, which is a problem in models like the PA and P42 because those have no sort of guide for it. These will force these contacts down and make sure they maintain pressure with the truck pickups at all times. So I'm just going to now put this right on top, have the arrow pointing again away from the engine, and just press down firmly. And that should do it in terms of getting that replaced. Right. I think that'll work. Is that correct? I think so. Oh dear. Okay, so that's in there right now. Next, I'm going to play the decoder down on top. Hopefully this all works out well. As far as I can tell, I have it right. Again, this is the TCS KD. See there, KD. Pardon me, K5D7. Darn dyslexia. Okay, so now we have the decoder here. These are the two motor pickup pads. There are a few other pads to install their features, but we're not doing that today. I'm going to go now and get my Kapton tape out of the way, and I'm going to carefully line this up. This, again, is the infamous hook that these decoders use, Focus. Kato uses to hold their decoders in from these sort of flat-top installations, as I call them. So all we're going to do here is we're going to place this down. I'll line that hook up and slide the decoder board back so it grabs onto the decoder like we see there. We want this to hold the decoder down firmly. I also want to make sure these trucks are free, and they are. Oh, no, it came out here. Let's do that again. I messed up on that. You're going to fold these two contact lines over the motor pickups. Okay, after a while, I'm ready to solder. First step on this is to apply some no clean flux. This is the brand I'm going to use. It's this quick chip quick or whatever they call it. It's not to be confused with the actual stuff that's quick chip, which is designed to basically allow the solder to not cool off as quickly so you can do some soldering moves. In this case, this is in fact no clean flux, meaning you don't have to worry about cleaning off. It's not corrosive. It's basically a pen. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bend these contacts back. I know that's a little counterproductive, and just gently apply, after pressing this in a few times, some of this to it. You only need a little bit. There it goes. Now, it wouldn't flow before. Now it did, of course. So let me come back right here and just dry some of that excess off. I don't want to put too much of this on there. Even though this is supposed to be pretty safe for electronics, it shouldn't have a problem. Let's make sure. Okay, with that now adjusted, I'm going to now go and put this decoder back in place. It slipped out a little bit. I want to make sure it's in the hook, because again, once I do this, it won't work any better. I'm going to go ahead now first and apply a little solder to the actual pads right here. Bend these back a little bit more. And then once I've done that, I'm going to then bend them down using my tweezers and press them into place with a little bit more solder and have the two bits sort of connect each other. Let me go get let me get this stuff out of the way here. Let me get my iron, which should be nice and hot by now. Yes, it is. Go now get a little solder on my point, on my tip. Or you're working in a very high humidity environment, put extra solder on the tip like you see here, because by doing that, you'll avoid the corrosion that you normally would get with humidity on metal. The solder itself may corrode, but you can easily scrape it off. The tip won't. The tip you can't, I should say, but you can scrape the solder off, so that's why I always do that. And if the solder does start to get corroded, the easiest way of dealing with it, I find, is just to reapply the solder. Use one of these tin balls, which I have over here. These metal balls with solder cleaning things, these things they make now, and just use that to take the corroded solder off the tip. And then replace it with fresh solder. Because again, solder is very cheap, beyond the point where you can even measure it. And you actually get a little bit less off my iron right there. Okay, now that I'm sure I have a nice clean tip to work with, I'm going to now apply just a tad of solder to my tip again. And then I'm going to place a little bit on one of the pads here. Let's try bending this back a little bit further. I hate always approaching this because it's very tricky to make your application here. You gotta again be very quick because you don't want to overheat things. That's one little bit of solder. Let me go get the next done. Turn it around 180 degrees. I was hoping to have it spread out a little bit better. I may have to reapply some of that stuff to it. Let's go and now do a little bit more of this. Go to the expletive, blade expletive. There we go. That's in place. You can see the flux helps the solder flow. That's the idea here. So I get a nice smooth patch. You want it as smooth as possible. I think I'm going to smooth the other one out. I don't like how that one came out. I need this to make contact correctly. So let me spread out what I have here. I may have to add a little bit more flux to this. Oh no, that actually is good. That's what I wanted. More of a smoother patch like that. Okay, I think that'll do it. You also note it's nice and silver, which means the connection is not dry and it's not dirty and it's not cold. All the things you don't want. So, I'm going to put my solder iron back in the holder. Keep my fan on. It's going to be a little bit noisy, pardon me on that. I'm going to move my solder out of the way, and I'm going to try to see now if I can complete the install. Let's go and slide this back in place. And now the solder is cooled. I'm going to fold these over gently. Grab my iron. Let me grab my tweezers and just gently fold them down. I'm probably going to have to solder these in place. I don't think the clip will work anymore at this point. What I think I'll do to avoid getting too much solder on here is to use minimal solder the next time I do that. So I'm going to have to now solder these on top of that connection to make sure they don't move. There we go, that's in. Yeah, it looks like I can't reuse the clip, but that's typical on these. Let me go ahead now and, after making sure that's in correctly, gonna now go and grab some more solder and solder over those. I'm gonna use my tweezers here to keep pressure on the point. I'll show you how I do that so that the clip will bond with the solder I've placed on the actual connection. So I've now got my tweezers right here. I'm just gonna press this down and gently squeeze in here and just touch that. Just need to touch it. There we go, that's in place. A little bit tricky to get done. I was kind of near that chip that was freaking me out, but I got it done. It's down. Again, same thing on the other side. I'm going to get a little bit more solder on my iron again. You always have to tin. Whether you have enough is irrelevant. You have to always tin because you need fresh solder for this to work the way it's supposed to. Here we go. Here's my new solder tin thing. Let's now go press this down. I don't mind if my tweezers get messed up. These are not new anyway, but prefer if I didn't, but there we go. As you see, what happened there is the solder bonded, and as you see, it quickly took it over and grabbed it. And just make sure my connections are good now. It's always very tricky to do this on camera. Yep, looks like that worked. Now the tips are now in the solder themselves. This should now be good to test. It also held it in place good. So let's go ahead now and change modes. I'm going to turn my iron off, pull the plug on it, leave the extractor on for a few seconds, and then I'll get my DCC system up and running and give this a shot. Okay, now for the moment of truth. Will this thing run, or have I just blown another decoder? Well, we'll find out. Please note the track is not energized yet. I haven't plugged my DCC system in yet. I'm going to go do that now. It's probably going to come on full power again. I don't know why it's been doing that. This thing, again, as I told you, this MRC thing has always been very quirky. Don't know what the deal is. Let's see what happens. Smoke test plugged in. Power's on, and it didn't move. But it does move. Okay, good. Okay, I fixed it. So, backwards. Ooh, a little bit too quick there. Forwards. Backwards. Backwards. That might help if I turn the throttle up instead of to 0. That would help, wouldn't it? Forwards. You know what? The lights come on one side only, and that's actually supposed to be because that's how this is designed. But yep, this is officially done. So now I'm ready to reassemble it. But first, let me actually program this. That's going to take off again. There it goes. I stopped it. Let me go now. We're going to call this main track program. This is number 183. So let's go program that. Programming main track. Number 3. It's going to be 183. Enter. There it goes. That's a good response. 183. It's actually very peppy, I notice. This thing wants to move. That's a good sign. It's a really good... That means the decoder is in really good shape. It really wants to move, that's for sure. Let me get rid of this little thing set up there. Okay, so now I have my decoder programmed. Now I'm going to reassemble the locomotive as such. So I have my shell right over here, which I've kept to the side. I'm going to now unplug my DCC system so I don't risk shorting anything out while I work on this. And I'm going to now push the track to the side a little bit better, and which I'll get you in right up here. Yeah, that'll work. Let's grab the base plate. There's a little base for the back that I have to put on, which I'll grab right now. I put that back in the box here so I wouldn't lose it. This I lost on one of my other models and didn't realize until much later that, oops, I was supposed to keep that. This little back place here, this goes on the back porch railing. you want to make sure the diamond effect right here, like this is, I don't know how well this will come out. Let me see if I can get this thing to cooperate again. This diamond plate effect is on the top, not the bottom, like I have it right here. And it's just, and this just goes right in the back here someplace. There should be a place where this plugs in. Yeah, like that. Just goes right on the back as such. It's not technically supposed to come off, but it always does. Don't go crazy. If you, don't freak out if you see it fall off. It's not a big deal to fix. Just goes right back on. And now we just take the shell and place it on top. The couplers are again mounted to the frame, so I don't have to worry about anything here. This just drops right on top of the body. I'm not going to be reusing the clip, unfortunately, on this because, again, I can't get it to fit, but I'm going to keep this handy in my parts box here. I don't think I'd ever get that back in place now because of how that fit. So the instructions were right on that. I really hate not being able to reuse the clip, but I can't. So with all that, I'm just going to now gently press this thing together. And we're done. And just like that, I have assembled the unit. Just double checking the trucks. Let's now try this one more time. No power is on currently, so don't need to worry about shorting anything. Hopefully not. Let me get this out of the way. Don't want to knock this on the floor. No sense in ruining the case for one of these. Keep you on 0.5 out, actually, yeah, because of how far out this is. There are some detail parts that come with these, like little brake cylinders and stuff. I usually don't bother assembling them. I don't normally notice them in place. Well, there actually are number boards on the top. I didn't even notice that, so I'm going to have to get those in at one point. Let's go right now, though, and see making this thing work. Let's go turn the power back on. Cringe. I'm always afraid I'm going to blow something out. Oh, it's on. I just don't have it plugged in. Oh, come on. Don't short on me. Okay, no short. That's good. Let's go 183. No, not 83. 183. There we go. And now checking the front. I don't know how well this will come out. I'll probably have to take you off the tripod to show you this, but I definitely want to. Yep, the lights work perfectly. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So you see, currently we're in forward mode, and as you'll note, the headlight is just on that way. Now, as I showed you with the red lights, I'm going to now put it in reverse. See how you also notice the strobe light on the top is illuminated. Now go to reverse. The headlights go red, which is pretty cool. So the backup headlights are on, and you see red lights out of the marker lights. Of course, it also moves in reverse. So, with that, I've finished this upgrade. Just going to install my detail parts and call this one done. So I hope you enjoyed this little video idea here, this little impromptu video of a DCC install on a Kato f40 Metra. If you like this video, as always, give it a thumbs up. If not, thumbs down. Please like and subscribe, and as always, keep the metal side down. Oop.